So I'm laying in my bed, and I hear the attic door open, and I hear the attic door shut. And I hear footsteps, not just any kind of footsteps. I hear footsteps with a purpose, and they're heading right down the hallway towards my bedroom. So I'm sitting there with the covers up to my neck, completely terrified, shaking in fear. And this guy walks straight to the doorway and stops. And all I see is a black silhouette of the man standing there in my doorway, staring at me. I'm completely frozen fear, just petrified. What's up, guys? It's Mr. Kraft. If you're a fan of the strange and unexplained, go ahead and hit subscribe and ring the bell so you get all notifications when I upload new videos to my new YouTube channel. I'm going to try and upload 2 to 3 videos a week. If I can find the time, I'm going to upload more. But be sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get all notifications for my new videos. August 31st, 2001. My mom, my dad, and myself moved from Arkansas to Louisiana, to a nice little small town where everybody knows everybody, and it's a town that my mom and dad grew up in. It's the town where they met, it's the town where they got married, it's the town where I was conceived. Now, the house we moved into was a nice little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, right down the road from the high school, right around the corner from the library. There was even a big church right across the street. Like, you can stand on the front porch of the house and you can look at the church. Now, the floor layout of this house is going to be very important in this video. Let me explain. The living room and the dining room was combined. It was just one big room. No spaces in between, just one solid room. Now, if you're standing in the dining room, you can walk through a doorway to a small little kitchen. As soon as you walk through that doorway, you can take a left, and it's a hallway. Down that hallway, there's a bathroom on the right. Right past the bathroom is a little bitty office room, probably 8 by 8, little bitty square room. Right on down past that room is another doorway that you can take a left and go into the living room. If you continue on down the hallway about 4 or 5 feet, it kind of opens up to a little area, and there's 2 doors, 2 bedrooms. Bedroom on the right, bedroom on the left. My bedroom was on the right, my mom and dad's bedroom was on the left. Now, my dad was a logger. He worked in the logging woods. He would wake up every morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and he would go to work, and he wouldn't come home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Now, my mom would wake up every morning, and she would make him breakfast, and then off to work he would go. Now, my mom, she worked at a little diner in town. She was a waitress. So after my mom would get done cooking my dad breakfast, she would get everything ready for me to do my schoolwork that day because I was homeschooled. She would get everything laid out. She would write little notes on everything, and my work would be ready for me to do when I woke up out of bed. And then off to work she would go because she had to open the diner up. My mom would work till 3 or 4 o'clock every evening. So every morning during the week, I would wake up, I would take my morning shower, I would go in there to the kitchen and I would get my breakfast because my mom would always prepare my breakfast when she made my dad breakfast. I would eat my breakfast and then I would start my schoolwork. Now, every day about 11:30 or 12 o'clock, I would get on my bicycle and I would ride down to the cafe my mom worked at, and I would have lunch with my mom. And then once I was done with my lunch, I would ride my bicycle back home and I would finish my schoolwork. I would get done with my schoolwork around 2:30 or 3 o'clock every single day. Now, take note, this is how my day was lined out every single day of the week. The same exact routine every single day. Now, the first 2 or 3 days, I really wasn't noticing anything, but I was starting to take notice that when I would come back from lunch, there would be stuff missing, or stuff would be moved, or there would be a pot sitting on the stove that wasn't there when I left. So it was kind of starting to frighten me. So I would bring it up to my mom and I would bring it up to my dad, and they would just think, "Baby, you probably just forgot that you put that there." Now, I remember the day that I knew for a fact something was going on. Now, where I did my schoolwork at was in the dining room. Okay, my dad built me a handmade desk leaned up against the wall, so I would do my schoolwork every single day. Now, sitting at my desk, I could glance over like this and I could see into the kitchen. Well, this specific day, I got up, went into the kitchen. It was about 11:20. I put a pot on the stove with some water and put some tea bags in it. Turned on the burner. We had an electric stove. Got in there, started doing my schoolwork. I got hungry, and I left. Completely forgot that I left the tea on the stove boiling. Got on my bicycle, went down to the cafe, had lunch with my mom, got back on my bicycle, rode back home, walked into the house. The smoke alarm was going off. I was like, oh man, the tea. So I run into the kitchen. There's no pot on the stove. The stove is turned completely off. The pot that the tea was in is now in the sink. And the sink was running. Now I'm just standing here looking at this running water going into the pot in the sink. Goosebumps completely all over my body from head to toe. Completely terrified because I knew something funny's been going on in this house. I knew it. From the stuff being moved around, from the stuff missing, and now, magically, the tea moves from the stove to the sink, and the water's running and the stove's off. I was like, nope. I probably stood there 15 seconds just trying to grasp of what happened. I got on my bicycle, I rode straight to the cafe. I run inside and I was like, Mom, when I came down here for lunch, I left tea on the stove. I forgot completely about it. The stove was on high. When I got back home, the pot was in the sink. The stove was off and the water was running. And my mom was like, baby, it was probably your cousin Danny. You know he lives a couple of houses down on the same street. He probably heard the smoke alarm going off and he probably went in there, put the pot in the sink and turned the water on and just didn't tell nobody. Baby, it is completely fine. It's safe. It's completely fine. There's nothing going on in the house. I said, yes, ma'am. And I walked out of the cafe. I'm standing there beside my bicycle, completely terrified. I do not want to go back to this house because I know something is going on. Something is going on inside that house. But I have no choice. Nobody believes me. I'm 14 years old, completely terrified to go to my own house. So I get on my bicycle and I slowly make my way back home. I run in the house, grab my schoolwork, run outside to the porch, and that's where I finish doing my schoolwork. So as I'm sitting there on the front porch, trying to focus on my schoolwork, but at this point it is completely impossible to focus on anything besides of what just happened. So I'm thinking in my head, as soon as my dad gets home, I'm going to tell him and he's going to believe me. And he's going to tell my mom, hey, there's something going on in this house. But my dad gets home, he does not believe me. So now my mom doesn't believe me about what happened. My dad doesn't believe me about what happened. I talked to my cousin Danny that night. He never came to the house and put anything in the sink. And he also told my mom and dad that he didn't do that. They still don't believe me. That night, I climb in the bed. I'm sitting there just completely terrified. Just completely terrified. I don't know if it's a ghost. I don't know if somebody broke into the house. I have no clue what's going on. But I finally, I fall asleep. September 11th, 2001. I'm sitting at my desk doing my schoolwork. Just got done eating my breakfast. Just started doing my schoolwork when my mom calls the house. She says, Matthew, I need you to get to the diner right now. I'm like, what's wrong, Mom? What's wrong? She says, I'll explain it when you get here. Just get here. So I get on my bicycle. I make my way to the diner. I walk in. Everybody is watching the news. Every single body's watching the news. They seen the World Trade Center get attacked. They closed the diner down. My mom gets to go home early. So we load the bicycle up in the truck and we drive home. We get there, I unload my bicycle from the back of the truck. We walk in the house at the same time. My mom says, you was watching the news when I called? The TV in the living room is turned on. I start crying and I say, no, Mom, I was not watching the news. I have been telling y'all that something is going on in this house and y'all do not believe me. Y'all do not believe me. My dad comes home from work early as well. I'm sitting in the kitchen. I'm cooking some ramen noodles. And I hear my mom and dad in the living room talking. My mom tells my dad, babe, I really think Matthew's telling the truth. I really think something's going on in the house. And when I heard her say this, I felt so much relief because I just knew My dad was going to get to the bottom of this, and everything was going to be okay again. I was going to feel safe with staying at home alone, doing my schoolwork. I was going to feel safe to sleep at night. But that did not happen. That absolutely did not happen. My dad didn't believe it. My dad was like, oh, it's okay. Maybe the TV was set on a timer and it just came on by itself. Just excuse after excuse after excuse. Nobody believed me. And when you're 14 years old and stuff like this is happening to you and nobody believes you, nobody believes you that something is going on inside your own house, when you feel like you're not safe inside your own house, it is a horrible feeling. It's like the whole world is against you. But they will soon find out that I was not lying. This same night, we all go to bed. I'm laying in my bed and I'm kind of worried about what's going on. I'm recalling everything that happened that day with the World Trade Center and the TV being on. And I'm thinking about the tea and the water being left on and the stove being turned off. And I'm thinking about all the things that's out of place and some of the things that are missing. And I hear the attic door open. Now, in our house, we have one of the old attic doors that fold down like this. It has a little string on it, and you can pull the string and pull it down, and it has the little spring arms, and it makes that the noise that no other noise can match this noise. You can tell that the attic door is being opened. You can tell. So I'm sitting in my bed, and I am completely terrified. But nothing else happens. I just hear the attic door open, and I lay there probably a couple more hours, and I slowly fall asleep. So I wake up the next morning, I go into the kitchen, I grab my breakfast that my mom had prepared for me. I sit down at my school desk, I'm eating my breakfast, getting prepared to start my day off with my schoolwork, and I hear something in the kitchen. So I glance over, and in the kitchen, a man walks past the door. I sit back in my chair. I have goosebumps completely all over my body. I am just completely terrified at this point. He continues to walk down the hallway. I hear his footsteps. He walks past the second doorway that's down the other end of the living room, and he is looking at me. I jump up, I run out the front door, I run all the way down to my cousin's house. I say, Dad, I bust in his door. Danny, somebody is in the house. There is a man in the house right now. He grabs his gun. We run back down to the house. He checks all over the house. There is no sign of nobody. I tell my cousin Danny at this point, I am not staying in this house alone until my parents get off of work. So he takes me down to his house. I bring all my schoolwork down to his house. I do all my schoolwork at his house. My mom gets home. I rush down there on the bicycle so she's not in the house alone. I tell her what happens, and she says, baby, it's all your imagination. Your imagination is running wild. You are so frightened about the things that you believe are going on in this house at this point. There's nothing in here, baby. You are completely safe. Just try to tell yourself it's all your imagination. At this point, the tears are rolling. I am legit crying. And I'm saying, Mom, it is not my imagination. I seen the guy walk past the doorway. I heard the footsteps. I seen him looking at me in the second doorway in the living room. I know for a fact it is not my imagination. Me and my mom, we wait around until my dad gets home. We tell my dad, and he's kind of believing me and he's kind of not believing me. He wants to believe me, but it's crazy for him to believe me. All the doors in the house are locked. How did this guy get in the house? How did this man just all of a sudden appear in the house? So at this point in time, I'm telling myself it does no good to tell anybody what I'm experiencing and what I am seeing. So I tell myself, you are just going to have to live with this until they see this themselves. And I'm telling myself, how are they going to experience this and see what I am seeing if they're always working or they're always sleeping when something like this happens? So how am I going to convince them that this is happening? I can't. So they're just going to have to find out on their own. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So over the next couple of days, I don't really hear anything. I don't really see anything. I do notice that some things are out of place. I was getting blamed for drinking some of my dad's Cokes when I wasn't drinking none of my dad's Cokes, but overall, nothing really frightening has happened. So now we're coming up on the third day that nothing has really happened. I'm doing my schoolwork, I'm going to lunch, I'm coming home from lunch, I'm finishing my schoolwork, we're watching TV, everything is kind of like it's going back to normal. Until everyone goes to bed. So I'm laying in my bed, and I hear the attic door open, and I hear the attic door shut. And I hear footsteps, not just any kind of footsteps. I hear footsteps with a purpose, and they're heading right down the hallway towards my bedroom. So I'm sitting there with the covers up to my neck, completely terrified, shaking in fear. And this guy walks straight to the doorway and stops. And all I see is a black silhouette of the man standing there in my doorway staring at me. I'm completely frozen fear, just petrified. So I yell at the top of my lungs, "Dad! Dad!" I hear my dad get up. He's coming in there running. The guy disappears out of the doorway. He comes in there. He flips the light on. And he's like, "What is it? What is it? What is it?" And I said, "Dad, a guy just came out of the attic and came straight to my doorway. And he stood there and was staring at me when I screamed." My dad flips on all the lights, gets his pocket knife out. He's checking all the rooms, checking the closets, checking everywhere. And the guy is nowhere to be found. And my dad says, "Son, you're going to have to stop this. I don't know what you're trying to pull. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but you have to stop this right now." So I look at my dad straight in his face and I say, "Dad, I am not sleeping in my room alone anymore." So that night, I slept in the bed with my mom and my dad. I am 14 years old and I am sleeping in the bed with my parents. But I am completely lost at this point. Nobody is believing me on what I'm seeing. Nothing. So now I'm really not seeing anything during the day. I'm only seeing things at night. And most nights, this guy is just standing at my parents' doorway, staring at us, and I can hear him breathing. Real heavy breathing, like he's really out of shape or something, or he just ran a long ways or something. But this guy is breathing hard. And I don't know if he's breathing hard because he's trying to startle me or what. I woke my parents up a few times and the guy was just disappeared. So at this point, I'm not waking him up anymore. And this goes on for months and months. This guy just standing there, this guy doing whatever he wants to do inside our house, and nobody is believing me at this point. Nobody. One Saturday morning, we all wake up. My dad doesn't have work. My mom doesn't have work. I don't have any school work because it's a weekend. Me and my dad wake up by 7:30, 8 o'clock. We go in there and we're watching Westerns like we do most Sundays because my dad usually works every Saturday. My mom goes in there and she's going to start cooking us breakfast. And then she comes in the living room and she says, "Matthew, why did you dirty up my kitchen like you dirtied it up? What was you in there cooking?" So we all go in there and we look at the dishes, and there is a dirty skillet, there's a dirty pot. Somebody was in the kitchen eating while we was asleep. I said, "Mom, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about." They don't believe me. I get blamed for that as well. I get blamed for that. I get blamed for drinking my dad's Cokes. I get blamed for making stuff up with my imagination. I get blamed for everything. And this particular Saturday, we're getting Dish Network. I'm so excited for Dish Network because I love watching Cartoon Network. Even to this day, I still watch cartoons with my kids. I love Scooby-Doo. But anyways, me and my dad's hanging out in the living room, watching Westerns. The Dish Network guy finally arrives. It's about 3 o'clock during the day. The Dish Network guy comes in there, he hooks everything up, and he says, "Hey, what happened to the guy that lived in the attic?" My mom's like, "What?" My dad's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "I knew it. I knew it." I look at my mom and dad and I say, "I told you something was going on in this house," and nobody believed me. My mom starts crying. My dad says, "Hey, show me." They pull the attic down. They climb up there. Nothing. And the satellite man was like, "Hey, hold on. There's an extra part of the attic over there. It looks like somebody built a wall up." My dad goes over there to the very right corner of the attic. You got to kind of crawl over there to get there. there's a door. My dad pulls the door back. We all go in there. There is a mattress. There is a blanket. There is a pillow. There is a small TV up there. There's a radio up there. There's ashtrays with cigarette butts everywhere up there. There's canned food. There's canned Cokes. There's a can opener. There's some of the things that's coming up missing out of the house was up there. And it looks like the guy can get up there from the outside of the house because the little vent that's on the side of the house was on hinges and there was a latch on it. So I guess the guy would climb up the side of the house, come in the little window thing, shut it, and latch it. My dad completely boards that window up from the inside with screws and nails and just anything he can to secure that on the inside and the outside. So this guy's not coming back in. He changes the door locks. My mom and dad get all that stuff down from up there. They tear that little room down and they drill screws in the attic door so nobody can go back up in the attic and nobody can come down from the attic. And they tell me that they're very sorry for not believing me all this time. And to this day, nobody has any clue on who was living in our attic. Nobody has a single clue who was living in our attic. And to this day, I will not live in a house that has an attic. Will not live in a house that has an attic. This was my story. If you enjoy this story, I'm going to start uploading stories once or twice a week. So if you will, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, ring the bell, and I appreciate y'all taking time to listen. Thank you.